In recent days, the world has been stunned by a disaster that defies explanation: the crash of Air India Flight I-171, carrying 298 lives. Investigators are scouring the wreckage, promising answers, perhaps a mechanical fault or human error, to quell our need for clarity. Many are crying out, asking, where was God when these horrific events unfolded? But dear brothers and sisters, He has issued many warnings. Whether we listen or not is up to us. One of those warnings will be shared in today's story. This late-coming testimony comes from an Indian-born flight attendant who experienced clinical death and was directly warned by the Lord that the crash was only the beginning of a chain of events. Today, that truth will be brought to light, and it's not only for India, it is a wake-up call for the entire world. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video so this message can reach more people who need to hear it. Leave a comment below with your location and a short prayer. Lord, please bring peace to my family. And don't hesitate to share your thoughts. What do you believe is behind this horrifying disaster? Your voice matters. Your prayer matters. Now, let us listen to this testimony. My name is Anjali Varma, a flight attendant for Air India. The recent tragic plane crash fills me with deep remorse, as I believe part of the blame rests on my shoulders. A month ago, I received a warning in a dream, but fear silenced my voice. Growing up in a Mumbai slum, I dreamed of becoming a flight attendant. Watching planes soar above the crowded alleys was my only escape from poverty's grip. When Air India sent my acceptance letter, it was the happiest day of my life. My passion for the job burned brightly, but the relentless pace eroded my spirit. My faith in God, once a guiding light, dimmed after a devastating family tragedy. 2 years ago, my younger brother, Arjun, died in a motorbike accident, leaving my mother shattered and my heart heavy with doubt. Exhausted after a grueling series of flights, I decided to drive home to see my mother. Near a bustling intersection, my vision blurred and I collapsed onto the steering wheel. The car swerved, crashing into a roadside tree. Before darkness claimed me, I saw a glowing figure approach, and then I succumbed to unconsciousness. My soul lifted from my body, floating above the wreckage of my car. I saw my lifeless form slumped in the driver's seat, the vehicle's front crumpled like paper. Shouts of onlookers calling for help faded, as if swallowed by distance. A sudden force yanked me downward, plunging me into an endless void. I landed in a realm of absolute darkness, cold and devoid of any light. Fear gripped my heart as I realized I was no longer in the world I knew. A sinister voice echoed, claiming to be the one who reclaims what is rightfully its own. It was the devil, its tone chilling and laced with malice. The darkness parted, revealing countless souls engulfed in flames, their screams piercing the silence. These souls were trapped, punished for sins they could not escape, their faces twisted in agony, eyes pleading for mercy that never came. Their despair seeped into me, a weight I could not shake. The air grew heavy with the stench of sulfur and scorched flesh. Shadowy forms slithered around me, feeding on the torment like vultures. I tried to scream, but my voice was stolen by the void. The devil's voice accused me of ignoring the warning I had received. It claimed my silence had contributed to the Air India crash, a punishment for my faithlessness. Guilt surged, pinning me to the ground. Flashes of my life appeared, moments of selfishness and doubt. Each memory was a wound, cutting deeper into my soul. The darkness tightened, threatening to consume me entirely. Burning souls reached out, their hands clawing at the air. Their cries formed a haunting chorus, a sound no living soul could endure. I stood frozen, unable to flee their suffering. The devil laughed, its voice a cruel symphony echoing through the void. It promised endless suffering, not just for me, but for the world. I felt powerless, a prisoner in this nightmare. The ground trembled, alive with malevolent energy. Flames surged higher, their heat searing my spirit. I believed this torment would be my eternity. A faint spark of hope flickered within me. I whispered the name of Jesus, a name I had abandoned years ago. The darkness seemed to flinch, if only slightly. This small act of faith gave me strength to endure. I clung to it, desperate for salvation. The devil's laughter grew louder, mocking my defiance. The vision of burning souls intensified, their screams drowning my thoughts. I saw their lives, their regrets, each a story of lost opportunities. My heart ached, knowing I shared their flaws. I prayed again, my voice trembling but resolute. The darkness pulsed, angered by my resistance. I braced myself for what would come next. The devil's presence grew stronger, its power suffocating. It whispered lies, claiming I was unworthy of redemption. I fought back, clinging to Jesus' name. This was not just a place of punishment, it was a battleground for souls. I realized my presence here was no accident. I was meant to witness this, to understand the stakes. The torment stretched on, each moment an eternity of suffering. Yet I held fast, praying for deliverance. The devil's voice grew quieter, as if sensing a shift. The flames still burned, but their intensity lessened. A distant light appeared, faint but growing. I focused on it, praying for salvation. A colossal shadow loomed before me, its form a towering mass of darkness with eyes like burning coals. It declared itself the devil, ruler of the air, orchestrating chaos across the earth. Its voice accused humanity of greed, corruption, and abandoning faith, each word a venomous strike. Earthquakes, wildfires, and wars were just punishments it claimed for humanity's sins. The devil boasted of sowing discord, manipulating hearts to fuel conflict. Its laughter filled the void, reveling in our downfall. Trembling, I asked who directly caused these calamities. The devil spoke of the Antichrist, a deceiver cloaked in false righteousness, destined to rise and mislead nations. This figure would appear as a savior, promising peace but delivering ruin. The Antichrist's influence was already spreading, subtle yet pervasive, twisting truth to divide humanity. I saw visions of leaders shaking hands in public, plotting betrayal in secret. Their actions fueled wars, starvation, and despair. The devil's voice grew louder, accusing me of failing my calling. My silence about the warning had cost lives, it said, deepening my guilt. I sank to my knees, overwhelmed by shame. Images of cities crumbling under disasters flashed before me. People fled in panic, their cries echoing the burning soul's torment. The devil's hand was in every tragedy, amplifying human weakness. I saw families torn apart, children orphaned by conflict. Their pain mirrored the souls in the flames, a cycle of endless cycles. My heart broke, yearning to intervene. The devil mocked my compassion, calling it futile. It claimed humanity was beyond redemption, doomed to self-destruction. I refused to accept this, clinging to a flicker of hope. Flashes of my own life returned, moments I had turned from God. The devil twisted these memories, making me feel unworthy. I prayed silently, seeking strength to resist. The shadow grew larger, its presence suffocating. It promised to haunt me, ensuring my failure. I stood firm, whispering Jesus' name as a shield. Visions of global chaos unfolded, nations divided by greed and pride. Leaders ignored warnings, blinded by ambition. The devil's influence was a cancer, spreading unchecked. I saw a marketplace bombed, innocents caught in the crossfire. Their screams joined the burning souls, a chorus of despair. I wept, longing to change their fate. The devil's laughter grew shrill, sensing my resolve. It showed me corrupt officials, hoarding wealth while people starved. Their choices fed the darkness, sealing humanity's doom. Yet I felt a truth beneath its lies. God's love was stronger, a light that could pierce this void. I prayed for courage, defying the devil's taunts. The shadow pulsed, its form rippling with rage. It accused me of betraying my people, my silence a sin. I rejected its words, calling on Jesus' name. Visions of wars continued, soldiers dying in fields of blood. Leaders profited, their hearts cold to the suffering. The devil thrived on their apathy, growing stronger. I saw a child alone in a war-torn city, clutching a broken toy. Her eyes held the same despair as the burning souls. I vowed to fight for her, for all humanity. The devil's voice softened, offering false mercy. It tempted me to join it, to escape the torment. I refused, my faith a growing fire within me. Images of disasters multiplied, earthquakes leveling cities, floods swallowing homes. The devil claimed these were humanity's just rewards. I prayed harder, seeking God's mercy. The shadow began to waver, its power weakening. My prayers were breaking its hold, I realized. The light grew brighter, a beacon in the darkness. The devil screamed, its form dissolving into mist. I stood tall, my spirit fortified by faith. The burning souls faded, but their cries lingered, urging me to act. The devil's voice thundered, proclaiming that the fires of destruction would spread relentlessly across the earth. It declared the Air India crash was no mere mechanical failure, but a manifestation of humanity's greed and faithlessness. The tragedy was a symptom of a deeper spiritual decay, a world rotting from within, it sneered. Its words were a blade, slicing through my soul with cruel precision. I saw the crash site, a harrowing tableau of twisted metal and smoldering flames. Bodies lay scattered, lifeless amidst the wreckage, their silent forms a testament to shattered dreams. Families gathered at the edges, their wails a palpable force that seemed to thicken the air. The devil claimed it had woven this catastrophe, exploiting human negligence to bring it to fruition. Pilots had overlooked subtle warning lights, their minds clouded by personal turmoil and fatigue. Maintenance crews, pushed beyond endurance, skipped critical safety checks under corporate pressure. Profit-driven demands had sealed the plane's fate, a chain of failures orchestrated by unseen forces. The devil's laughter echoed, a chilling sound that reveled in their downfall. I saw boardrooms, sterile and cold, where executives prioritized wealth over human lives. They signed off on faulty systems, their pens moving with casual indifference to the consequences. The devil thrived on their arrogance, its presence a shadow behind their decisions. Each choice was a brick in the foundation of this tragedy, built on greed and pride. The crash was a symbol, the devil hissed, of a world that had forsaken God entirely. Without faith, no one could escape the judgment looming on the horizon. Its words crushed me, a weight that threatened to snuff out my hope. I felt helpless, as if the world's sins were my own to bear. Yet a spark of defiance flickered within me, refusing to accept its narrative. I prayed silently, asking God to reveal the truth behind this horror. The devil's laughter grew shrill, sensing my resistance. It mocked my faith, but I held fast, clinging to the name of Jesus. The vision replayed, showing passengers boarding the doomed flight with innocent trust. Their faces haunted me, each carrying stories of love, ambition, and hope cut short. A young mother cradled her infant, unaware of the fate awaiting them. An elderly man clutched a photo of his grandchildren, his smile radiant with pride. The devil insisted the crash was inevitable, humanity's sins sealing its fate. It scoffed at redemption, calling it a delusion for the weak. I rejected its lies, praying for guidance to see beyond its deception. My heart ached for the passengers, their lives stolen by forces they could not comprehend. I saw a mechanic, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, skipping a vital check to meet a deadline. His supervisor loomed over him, driven by corporate greed, dismissing his concerns. The devil's influence was subtle, a whisper nudging them toward catastrophe. Their choices, though small, had rippled outward, dooming hundreds. The wreckage faded, replaced by images of deserted airports, their terminals eerily silent. The devil boasted that fear would ground flights, paralyzing economies and sowing chaos. It delighted in the disruption, its voice dripping with triumph. I saw travelers hesitating, their trust in air travel shattered by the tragedy. Media reports flashed, attributing the crash to mechanical faults while ignoring the spiritual truth. The devil's lies kept the world blind, it bragged, ensuring the deeper cause remained hidden. I vowed to speak out to reveal the truth, no matter the cost. My resolve grew, fueled by the passengers' silent pleas. I saw a family waiting at the airport, their faces bright with anticipation. Their joy turned to despair as news of the crash reached them, their cries echoing in my ears. My heart broke, knowing my silence had failed them. I prayed for strength to warn others, to prevent such pain from recurring. The devil's form flickered, its power waning as my prayers intensified. My faith was eroding its hold, I realized with a surge of hope. I called on Jesus, my voice steady and unwavering. The darkness seemed to shrink, unable to withstand the light of my faith. The vision shifted, showing a world gripped by fear and uncertainty. People avoided travel, economies faltered, and trust dissolved like mist. The devil's plan was unfolding, a web of chaos tightening around humanity. Yet I refused to despair, holding fast to the promise of redemption. I saw a single prayer rising from the crash site, a faint but powerful light in the darkness. It was a survivor's whispered plea, a shield against the devil's malice. I focused on it, drawing strength from its purity. This light was proof that faith could prevail, even in the face of tragedy. The devil's voice grew faint, its threats hollow and empty. I realized the crash was a warning, not a final verdict on humanity's fate. We could change if we chose faith over fear. My mission crystallized, a call to awaken the world to this truth. I saw the passengers' faces again, their eyes pleading for salvation. I vowed to honor their memory by sharing the truth without hesitation. Their loss would not be in vain, but a catalyst for change. My heart swelled with purpose, ready to carry their stories forward. The light grew brighter, pulling me upward from the devil's realm. The devil screamed, its form dissolving into nothingness. I was free, but my mission was only beginning. The truth of the Air India crash was mine to proclaim, a beacon to guide humanity back to faith. A new vision unfolded, revealing a chilling series of plane crashes across India and Asia. Some were caused by hidden mechanical flaws, others by terrorist plots or unnatural storms. Each crash was a gaping wound, bleeding lives, hope and futures. The scale of the devastation overwhelmed me, a relentless assault on my spirit. A glowing map materialized, its surface marked with red dots pulsing like heartbeats. Each dot represented a future disaster site, a city destined for mourning. One stood out, a catastrophic crash in New Delhi set for next year, its scope so vast it stole my breath. The vision of a city plunged into grief was unbearable, a nightmare etched in fire. I saw families at airports, their faces radiant with trust as they waved goodbye to loved ones. Their expressions mirrored the Air India victims, oblivious to the tragedy awaiting them. My heart ached with a desperate urge to warn them, to spare them this pain. Their innocence was a weight, pressing against my soul. A terrorist plot emerged, a bomb concealed in a plane's cargo hold, undetected by lax security. Guards were distracted, swayed by bribes or bureaucratic inertia. The explosion tore through the sky, a fiery wound that claimed hundreds. The devil's hand was evident, exploiting human greed to fuel its chaos. Another crash unfolded, caused by a freak storm with winds that seemed alive with malice. Pilots battled the controls, their faces etched with determination, but the storm's fury was relentless. The devil's influence amplified the chaos, a subtle force that tipped the balance toward disaster. The plane shattered, its debris raining down like tears. I saw a mechanical fault, a critical component overlooked during rushed maintenance. Workers were exhausted, their warnings dismissed by superiors obsessed with profit. The plane plummeted, a preventable tragedy if faith had guided their hands. Each failure was a thread in the devil's tapestry, woven with human weakness. The map pulsed, each red dot a life, a family, a future stolen by these disasters. The weight of it crushed my spirit, threatening to break me entirely. I cried out to Jesus, my voice trembling with fear and desperation. The vision was too much, a burden no single soul could bear. The name I had forsaken years ago became my anchor, steadying me in the storm. The vision paused, as if acknowledging my plea for mercy. I prayed for a chance to alter this future, to spare the world this suffering. My heart pounded, a drumbeat of hope amidst the despair. The New Delhi crash replayed in excruciating detail, a plane spiraling into a crowded market. The explosion was deafening, flames consuming homes, shops, and lives in an instant. Survivors wandered through the wreckage, their faces blank with shock, their world shattered. The city's heartbeat faltered, drowned in sorrow. Government officials appeared, their faces smug as they dismissed warnings as superstition. They ignored the spiritual truth, blinded by the devil's lies and their own arrogance. Their denial sealed the fate of thousands, a betrayal of their people. I wanted to scream at them, to shake them from their complacency. I saw a pilot, once devout, now hardened by years of stress and disillusionment. His silence during a critical moment left his crew vulnerable, dooming their flight. A single prayer could have saved them, I realized with a pang of sorrow. His lost faith was a microcosm of the world's spiritual drift. The vision showed a world paralyzed by fear, flights grounded as trust evaporated. Economies crumbled, families were separated, and chaos reigned in once bustling airports. The devil's plan was unfolding, a slow strangulation of human connection. Yet, I refused to accept this as inevitable, clinging to hope. I prayed again, pleading for courage to speak and warn the world. The vision shifted, revealing a future where prayer could avert these disasters. Hope flickered, a fragile flame urging me to act. I saw a world where faith could rewrite this grim prophecy. A security guard appeared, praying quietly before his shift at an airport. His words formed a spiritual shield, guiding his instincts to stop a terrorist. His vigilance saved a flight, a testament to faith's power. This vision was a beacon, showing what could be if humanity prayed. The map faded, but its image burned in my mind, a constant reminder of my mission. I knew I had to warn the world, no matter the personal cost. The weight of responsibility was immense, but I accepted it fully. My resolve grew, rooted in the faces of future victims. I saw a mother praying for her son's flight, her words a protective mantle around the plane. The aircraft landed safely, defying a raging storm. Her faith was a lesson, a call for all to follow. It showed me the power of even a single prayer. The devil's voice returned, weaker now, mocking my efforts as futile. It claimed the crashes were inevitable, humanity's fate sealed by its sins. I ignored it, trusting Jesus' promise of redemption. My faith was a shield, unbreakable against its lies. The vision ended, leaving me in a heavy silence. My mission was clear, to call the world to prayer, to avert these tragedies. I vowed to fulfill it, no matter the obstacles ahead. The faces of the victims drove me forward, their silent pleas my guide. A radiant light enveloped me, banishing the suffocating darkness of the devil's realm. A gentle force lifted me skyward, pulling me away from the torment below. An angel appeared, its wings shimmering with golden light, its presence a soothing balm to my weary soul. Its eyes held an eternity of compassion, inviting me to trust its guidance. It led me through a celestial city, its streets paved with crystal that glowed with divine beauty. Rivers of light flowed through the city, their music a melody that calmed my racing heart. I felt unworthy of this splendor, yet welcomed by a love beyond comprehension. The air was alive with peace, a stark contrast to the hell I had escaped. The angel guided me to a healing stream, its waters sparkling like diamonds under an eternal sun. As I stepped into the stream, my spiritual wounds vanished, my spirit renewed with vibrant energy. A white robe, pure and radiant, clothed me, its fabric soft as a whisper, symbolizing my rebirth. I stood transformed, no longer bound by my earthly pain. I stood before Jesus, his presence both majestic and tender, overwhelming yet intimate. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face, unable to contain my awe. His love enveloped me, erasing every trace of fear and doubt. His eyes, deep as the cosmos, saw every corner of my soul, yet held only compassion. I pleaded for mercy, for those still faithful on earth despite their struggles and trials. The angel affirmed that hope and forgiveness remained within humanity's reach. Jesus nodded, his eyes filled with boundless compassion, a promise of grace. His presence was a fortress, shielding me from the echoes of the devil's lies. He explained that humanity's rejection of faith had opened doors to dark forces, allowing evil to flourish. Disasters were not his will, but the result of human choices turning away from him. His voice carried sorrow for the world's pain, yet also hope for its redemption. Each word was a seed, planting purpose in my heart. He touched my forehead, and a wave of peace flooded my soul, warm and unending. My fears dissolved, replaced by a burning purpose that felt eternal. He showed me my heart, scarred by loss and doubt, but capable of healing through faith. This revelation humbled me, a call to embrace my brokenness as strength. I saw my life, moments of doubt and pain laid bare before his gaze. Jesus revealed why I was chosen, My brokenness made me a vessel for his message. I wept, grateful for his grace, overwhelmed by his mercy. My past, once a source of shame, became a foundation for my mission. The celestial city glowed brighter, reflecting God's infinite glory in every facet. I felt connected to every soul, living and departed, a unity that transcended time. The angel's presence strengthened my resolve, a silent vow to serve. Its light was a guide, illuminating my path forward. Jesus spoke of prayer, the key to overcoming darkness and evil in the world. Each sincere prayer was a light, piercing the devil's lies and schemes with divine power. I vowed to share this truth, to awaken humanity to its strength. My voice, though small, would carry his message. The healing stream's waters lingered on my skin, a reminder of my renewal and transformation. I was no longer the broken girl from Mumbai's slums, lost in grief. I was a messenger, reborn in faith and purpose, ready to face the world. The stream's melody echoed in my heart, a song of hope. The angel's wings rustled, a sound of divine assurance and unwavering strength. It promised to guide me in my mission, a constant ally against the trials ahead. I felt its power, a shield against doubt and fear. Its presence was a gift, a reminder I was never alone. Jesus' gaze held me, his love an unbreakable anchor in the storm. He entrusted me with a message for humanity, urgent and clear as a clarion call. I accepted, ready to face the world below with courage. My heart swelled, filled with a purpose that felt eternal. The city faded, but its beauty remained etched in my heart, a source of strength. I knew I would carry it forever, a light to guide my steps. The mission was daunting, but I was not alone. Jesus and the angel were with me, their presence my foundation. The angel's voice echoed, urging me to be bold and unwavering in my task. I nodded, my spirit fortified by divine resolve and love. The light grew, preparing me for my return to earth. I was ready, armed with faith and a mission to save souls. Jesus showed me a vision of airports shrouded in dark, ominous clouds, heavy with foreboding. These clouds were the absence of prayers, once offered by travelers and crews before flights. Faith had been replaced by blind trust in technology and human systems, leaving humanity vulnerable. The darkness pulsed, a sign of spiritual neglect. Passengers boarded planes, their hearts heavy with worry but silent in prayer. Pilots checked instruments with mechanical precision, ignoring the spiritual shield prayer could provide. The clouds thickened, a tangible sign of their exposure to unseen forces. Their silence was a void, inviting chaos to fill it. One flight stood out, saved by a child's heartfelt prayer, pure and untainted. Her innocent words rose like a beacon, guiding the plane through a turbulent storm. The devil's influence faltered, unable to breach her faith's radiant light. Her prayer was a miracle, a glimpse of hope in a darkened world. I saw other flights, lost to negligence and pride, their crews blind to warnings. They trusted machines over divine guidance, a fatal error. The clouds consumed them, a tragic consequence of their spiritual silence. Each loss was a wound, bleeding hope from the world. Airports worldwide appeared, each cloaked in a spiritual darkness that chilled me. Travelers rushed through terminals, unaware of the battle raging above their heads. I longed to shout, urging them to pray and seek God's protection. Their ignorance was a weight, pressing against my heart. Jesus explained that prayer was a shield, a light against the forces of evil seeking to destroy. Without it, humanity was exposed to the devil's schemes and manipulations. His words burned, a call to awaken the world from its slumber. Prayer was not just words, but a lifeline to salvation. I saw a family praying together before a flight, their words forming a protective barrier. Their plane landed safely, defying a hidden mechanical fault. The vision gave me hope, a glimpse of what could be if faith returned. Their unity was a model, a call for all to follow. The clouds pulsed, fed by humanity's apathy and faithlessness, growing darker. Executives prioritized profit over safety, their choices deepening the spiritual gloom. Prayer could break this cycle, Jesus assured me, restoring light to the skies. His promise was a spark, igniting my resolve. A pilot, once devout, now cynical, appeared in the vision, his heart hardened. His silence during a critical moment left his crew vulnerable to disaster. A single prayer could have saved them, I realized with sorrow. His lost faith mirrored the world's drift from God. The vision showed a world where prayer was rare, almost forgotten by most. Disasters multiplied, each a consequence of humanity's spiritual neglect. I wept, knowing I had to change this reality. My tears were a vow, a commitment to act without delay. Jesus' voice was gentle, urging me to warn others of this vital truth. Prayer was not just a ritual, but a living connection to Him, a source of power. I vowed to teach this to all who would listen, no matter the cost. My mission was clear, a call to restore faith. The child's prayer replayed, her voice a melody of hope and purity, untainted by doubt. It reminded me of my own childhood, when faith was simple and strong. I longed to restore that innocence to a world grown cold. Her light was my guide, a beacon for my journey. Airports faded, but their darkness lingered in my mind, a constant reminder. My mission was urgent, time slipping away like sand through my fingers. Prayer could lift these clouds, if only people would listen. I resolved to make them hear, to awaken their hearts. I saw a future where travelers prayed, their words lighting the skies above with divine light. Planes landed safely, protected by the power of collective faith. It was a vision worth fighting for, a world transformed by prayer. This hope drove me, a fire in my soul. The devil's laughter echoed, mocking my hope as futile and weak. I ignored it, focusing on Jesus' promise of redemption through faith. Prayer was the key, and I would share it tirelessly. My resolve was unbreakable, forged in the light of His truth. The vision ended, leaving me with a burning resolve to act immediately. I saw passengers' faces, waiting for salvation through faith and prayer. I would not let them down, no matter the obstacles. Their lives were my mission, their hope my purpose. An angel appeared, holding a scroll glowing with divine light, radiant and holy. It read a verdict against humanity, forsaking faith, worshipping technology, and profiting from others' pain. The words were heavy, a mirror reflecting the world's flaws and failures. Each syllable was a call to account, a truth humanity could not ignore. Airline executives ignored safety for wealth, their greed darkening the spiritual skies above. Government officials turned blind eyes, complicit in the devil's schemes through inaction. Media spread fear, drowning out truth with sensationalism and lies. Their collective choices were a storm, brewing disaster. The angel's voice rang out, clear and piercing, asking, "Who will warn them?" The question struck my heart, a call I could not evade. I felt the weight of responsibility, both daunting and undeniable. My soul trembled, yet I knew I was chosen for this task. Jesus affirmed that prayer was the only defense against hell's flames, a shield of light. Without it, disasters would worsen, a judgment humanity brought upon itself. His words were urgent, a plea for immediate change in the world. Prayer was the path to salvation, the only way forward. I saw executives in luxurious offices, unaware of their dwindling time on earth. Their decisions fueled the devil's fire, endangering countless lives with each choice. Prayer could redeem them, if they chose it willingly, turning from greed. Their salvation was possible, a hope I clung to. Journalists appeared, twisting stories for profit and fleeting attention. Their words sowed division. A single prayer could shift their hearts, I realized with a spark of hope. Their influence could be turned to truth if they sought God. Politicians promised safety while ignoring spiritual warnings, their pride a blindfold. Their arrogance sealed fates, dooming those they swore to protect. I longed to shake them, urging repentance and faith in something greater. Their redemption was within reach, if they humbled themselves. The verdict echoed, a warning to all who would hear it. Humanity's choices had invited darkness, but redemption was still possible through faith. Prayer was the path, the angel declared with unwavering certainty. Its voice was a clarion, calling for change. I saw a future where leaders prayed, their decisions guided by divine wisdom and love. Disasters lessened, communities healed, and hope returned to the world. It was a vision of transformation within humanity's grasp. This possibility fueled my mission, a light in the darkness. The devil's voice intruded, claiming victory over humanity's soul. It mocked the idea of change, calling us weak and doomed. I rejected it, trusting Jesus' promise of salvation through prayer. My faith was a shield, deflecting its lies with divine strength. The angel's scroll glowed brighter, listing those who could be saved through prayer. It was a beacon of hope, a guide for my mission to the world. I vowed to reach them all, no matter the cost. Each name was a soul, a life I was called to save. The vision showed a world on the brink, teetering between judgment and salvation. Prayer could tip the balance, Jesus said, offering a chance for renewal. I felt the urgency, a fire burning in my soul. The time for action was now, no delays permitted. I saw the faces of those in power, oblivious to their impending fate. Their choices affected millions, a responsibility they ignored at their peril. I prayed for them, asking for divine mercy and guidance. Their hearts could still turn if warned in time. The angel's voice softened, offering guidance and strength for the journey. It promised to walk with me, a divine ally in my mission. I nodded, ready to face the challenge with courage. Its presence was a gift, a reminder of God's support. The verdict faded, but its truth remained etched in my heart, unyielding. Humanity could choose light, if warned in time by my voice. I accepted my role as a messenger of hope, unwavering. My mission was to awaken the world, starting now. The angel vanished, leaving me with Jesus' presence, warm and eternal. His love was my strength, a shield against doubt and fear. I was ready to return, armed with divine truth. The world awaited, and I would not fail it. Jesus handed me a glowing book, its pages inscribed with names of souls who could survive through prayer. His voice was solemn, commanding me to speak the truth, even if rejected. I wept, overwhelmed but willing, pleading, "Stay with me." He smiled, his love a fortress around my trembling spirit. The book pulsed, each name a life, a story, a chance for redemption. I vowed to honor them, to fulfill my sacred mission. The celestial light faded, preparing me for my return to earth. I felt the book's weight, a sacred burden I embraced. I was no longer just a flight attendant, I was God's messenger. I saw the faces of those named, each unaware of their impending fate. Their lives depended on my courage, my voice. I prayed for strength, trusting Jesus' promise. The book glowed brighter, a guide for my journey ahead. It held not just names, but prayers, each a light piercing the darkness. I clutched it, ready to act boldly. Jesus' voice echoed, a final charge to be fearless. "Go, and do not fear," he said. I nodded, my heart full of unwavering resolve. The light enveloped me, pulling me back to the physical world. I felt the book's weight, a reminder of my purpose. I was ready to face the challenges ahead. The names in the book called to me, their voices a chorus of hope. I vowed to reach them, to change their fate through prayer. Their lives depended on my obedience. The celestial realm faded, replaced by the hum of earthly machines. I knew my mission was urgent, time slipping away. I prayed for courage, for divine guidance. The book's light remained, a beacon in my heart. I saw Jesus' face, his love sustaining my spirit. I was his messenger, and I would speak without fear. I saw a world waiting, unaware of the truth I carried. I would awaken them, one prayer at a time. The mission was daunting, but I was prepared. The names glowed, each a soul I could save. I saw their families, their dreams, their futures at stake. I vowed to fight for them, no matter the cost. The light dimmed, but my resolve grew stronger. I was ready to return to face the world's doubts. Jesus was with me, and I would not falter. The book's glow was my guide, a promise of salvation. I saw the faces of those I would warn, their eyes searching for hope. I would bring it to them. The mission was mine, a sacred trust I embraced. I would speak, pray, and save, starting now. The time was short, and I was ready. I woke in the IQ, my body scarred with burns but my heart ablaze with purpose. Machines beeped, their rhythm a stark contrast to the celestial silence I had known. Doctors stared, astonished by my recovery after 7 minutes of clinical death. I began sharing my story, but fear held me back from revealing the full vision. In India, political unrest made truth-telling risky, especially for a woman like me. I kept part of the prophecy secret, dreading accusations of inciting panic. My body healed, but my heart ached with the weight of the untold prophecy. Each pain was a reminder of the crash I had foreseen. I knew silence was no longer an option. A month later, news of the Air India crash confirmed my vision. Guilt overwhelmed me, knowing I could have warned others. I resolved to speak, no matter the consequences. I saw the victims' faces, their lives cut short by human failure. Their memory drove me to act, to honor them with truth. I prayed for courage, for divine protection. The hospital was chaotic, nurses and doctors a constant presence. They called my survival a miracle, but I knew it was a mission. I had to prepare the world. I wrote my testimony, each word a step of faith against fear. Doubt whispered I would be mocked, but Jesus' voice was stronger. I trusted him, ready to face rejection. The crash site haunted me, a vision of loss and warning. I saw survivors, their eyes searching for meaning. I vowed to give them hope through prayer. My mother visited, her tears a reminder of my purpose. She urged caution, fearing for my safety in a volatile nation. I promised to speak, but with wisdom. The political climate was tense, truth a dangerous weapon. I prayed for guidance, knowing my words could spark change or chaos. Jesus' presence was my shield. I saw the map again, America glowing red with warning. More disasters were coming, and I had to act. I would urge prayer, starting with my testimony. The hospital faded as I recovered, my body whole but my mission urgent. I left carrying the book's light in my heart. The world awaited, and I was ready. The crash's aftermath was chaos, investigations pointing to human error. I knew the deeper spiritual truth. I would reveal it, no matter the cost. I saw the child's prayer again, her faith a beacon of hope. It reminded me of the power I carried. Prayer could save lives, if I spoke boldly. The mission was urgent, time slipping away like sand. I prayed for strength, for boldness, for impact. Jesus was with me, and I would not fail. You may doubt my story, but I know what I saw. The crash was a warning, and more are coming. Please listen, pray, and prepare for what lies ahead. Anjali Varma's testimony has concluded, but its message echoes on. The Air India crash was a heartbreaking tragedy, claiming countless lives. Please offer a prayer for the departed, that they rest with God and for your own protection. The disasters have not ceased, and America must beware, as it is next in line. This warning transcends India, a call to awaken the world. Stay tuned for the next testimony from a soul lost in an earthquake, carrying God's message for America. This man traveled to Myanmar as a tourist and found himself at the very epicenter of a devastating earthquake that had just struck. Death seemed inevitable, but the moment his soul left his body, he was taken by Jesus and returned with a terrifying message about the future of America. So what exactly did he see? Watch this video to the end, because this warning might be the final chance for an entire nation. And here at Eternal Bible Stories, we believe that every genuine testimony is a wake-up call, and our mission is to share these stories to reignite faith, spark hope, and remind the world that God is still moving in the midst of us. If you believe the world needs to hear these truths, please like and subscribe to stand with us on this journey. And now, let's listen to his testimony. My name is Daniel. I'm 56 years old and I live in Oregon. Before everything happened, I had a life that many people would envy. A small interior design company I built from scratch, a cozy home near the forest, and plenty of free time to read, go fishing, or explore interesting places around the world. I never really considered myself a religious person. I grew up in a Christian family and went to church as a child, but the older I got, the more it all felt disconnected from modern life. I didn't hate God, but I didn't feel like I needed him either. I believed in goodness. I believed that if I lived kindly, hurt no one, and tried my best every day, that would be enough. I once told a friend, if there is a God, surely he'll understand that I'm doing good, and that should count for something. What I didn't realize was that I was living a good life, but an empty one. Toward the end of last year, I began to feel lost. There wasn't any specific reason, everything just suddenly felt meaningless. Work no longer excited me. My old hobbies didn't bring any joy. One evening, I sat by the window and asked myself, is there more than this, or is this all there is? I decided to leave the US for a while, not to run away, but to search for new inspiration. I thought everyone needs a break sometimes, a moment to step away from work, from money, or simply from the daily rush. Myanmar came to me like a strange suggestion. I didn't know much about the country except for a few images of temples and ancient landscapes, but something inside me kept urging, go, there's something waiting for you there. So after doing a bit of research, I booked a ticket, a 2-week trip to rest, explore, and, if I was lucky, to find inspiration again in both my work and life. In the days leading up to the flight, I felt constantly restless and anxious, probably a normal feeling before a long journey. But I had no idea that what I was seeking would come to me at the edge of death. Let me say this first. I never considered myself someone who hated religion. I didn't mock people who went to church, nor did I join debates about faith or write those online rants like, is God even real? I simply didn't care. To me, belief in God was something for other people, those who were emotionally fragile, hurt, or needed something to lean on when they had nothing else. As for me, I had a job, some savings, decent health, and a life that was, for the most part, peaceful. I didn't feel the need for anything metaphysical to carry me forward. Honestly, I used to think, as long as I lived kindly, didn't harm anyone, stayed moral and generous, that was spirituality. Whether I believed in a higher power or not wasn't really important. I had traveled to many religious countries, Thailand, Nepal, India, walked into breathtaking temples, stood before Buddha statues, snapped a few pictures and walked out again like a regular tourist. When I saw people bowing, praying, I didn't laugh at them. I didn't judge. I just couldn't understand how someone could believe with such intensity. To me, it felt more like a beautiful ritual, something cultural rather than something true. I had never truly believed the soul was real. Death was the end, or if there was anything after, it was too big of a mystery to grasp, so I chose not to ask. There were moments during unusually quiet nights when I felt an odd emptiness inside, like something was missing, something I couldn't name, but instead of exploring it, I would just put on some soft music, meditate for 5 minutes, then go to sleep. And so, I chose busyness. I chose to normalize everything. I kept telling myself, I'm fine. Until one day, life no longer gave me the luxury of putting it off. I arrived in Myanmar on a weekday, carrying a small suitcase, a camera, and a soul searching for inspiration long lost. After nearly 3 decades of living in a kind of stability that had turned stale in America, I longed for something different. Not a reckless adventure, but a kind of quiet newness, just enough to awaken emotions that had long been asleep inside me. Myanmar drew me in with its stark contrast, the dusty streets filled with movement, and the solemn, sacred stillness of golden temples, places where people lived slowly, bowed in prayer, and seemed to understand something I had never grasped. I rented a small room near the center of Yangon, within walking distance of the market, the temples, and a modest tea house that I grew fond of after just a few visits. Everything felt so peaceful, so gentle, that I began to wonder if I had finally found the place I was meant to be, a corner of the world that didn't rush me, didn't demand anything of me, and didn't require me to be anyone but myself. That morning unfolded like any other. Soft sunlight, a light breeze, and no sign of anything unusual in the sky or beneath the earth. I had just left a small riverside temple where I had sat in stillness for over half an hour. Not praying, just quietly watching the locals burn incense and bow with a reverence I couldn't understand but somehow envied. I walked into the humble tea house I frequented, ordered the same drink as usual, pulled out a chair by the window and prepared to scroll through some photos I had taken earlier that morning. I remember the first sensation clearly, a slight tremor, barely noticeable, as if something deep beneath the surface had stirred, making the glass in front of me clink softly. I looked up, intending to ask the staff if a large truck had passed by, but then I saw the change in their eyes, suddenly tense, confusion giving way to fear. Everything happened too quickly. The floor began to move beneath us, rising and falling like a massive wave erupting from underground, and no one inside had time to fully understand what was really happening. I heard screams, chairs crashing to the floor, ceiling lights colliding with each other, creating sounds like shattered wind chimes. Then came the sound of cracking, sharp, slicing through the air like a blade. A man shouted something in the local language. I couldn't understand the words, but the fear in his voice sent chills through me. I barely had time to grab the edge of the table as the ground shook violently once more, as if a massive undercurrent had struck the very foundation of the entire building. In that moment, time seemed to shatter. The ceiling cracked open, dust filled the air, and the light disappeared, giving way to flickering darkness as the electrical system failed. I heard something huge collapse behind me, and human voices echoed off one another like sound ricocheting through a cavern. Then everything burst apart like a soap bubble pricked by a thorn. I don't remember how I fell, nor where I hit. I felt nothing except a strange shift in space, like the world around me was being disassembled layer by layer in an instant. It all happened within seconds, but the force it carried was unlike anything I could have imagined, utterly devastating. I had always thought that if I were to die, it would be in some grand moment, or at the very least with a final emotion, regret, pain, or fear. But when that moment actually came, there were no screams, no tears, no goodbyes. There was only a whirlwind of sound, motion, and then, suddenly, silence. A silence I will never forget, not peace, but an absolute void, a space where every sound, every thought, every feeling vanished all at once. I had fallen into nothingness. Not a man sipping tea on vacation anymore, but something far more difficult to describe. I woke up in an entirely different world. I was no longer buried under the rubble, no longer trapped or crushed, but floating, fully conscious and aware. I was still at the scene of the disaster, yet I was no longer a part of it. I saw the shattered walls, the overturned tables, people weeping and desperately trying to help one another. I saw rescue teams rushing in, dusk thick in the air, sirens wailing in the distance, and then I saw my body. It was twisted beneath a piece of metal, eyes closed, blood smeared across my forehead, one arm broken at an unnatural angle, part of my leg pinned beneath debris. I was completely still, no breath, no movement. In that moment, I knew I was dead. And yet, strangely, I felt no fear. I felt as if I had stepped outside of fear itself, just as I had stepped out of my body. There was no more time, no urgency, no panic, only silence, wrapped in the strangest clarity I had ever known. But beneath that stillness, there was something else, a pull, a presence, as though something or someone was drawing near. Then I began to move, not walking, not even deciding to move, but simply being moved. I rose up and saw the entire scene from above. I saw the panic, the deep fear etched into the faces of strangers and rescuers. I saw people screaming, straining to lift beams far too heavy for their strength. Some were sobbing uncontrollably. Others stood frozen, paralyzed, unable to speak or move. The entire building now looked like a battlefield. Nothing was where it had been just minutes before. Nothing remained intact. I don't know how long I remained in that in-between space. A realm of pale grey stillness, without sound, without time. Everything felt suspended, and I no longer sensed a body or any physical surroundings. Only consciousness, bare and silent. And then, from somewhere within that silence, something appeared. I couldn't see a face clearly. There was no blinding light, no thunderous voice as movies often portray, but I knew with an inexplicable certainty that it was Jesus. His presence was so powerful that it felt as though even reality itself bowed before him. And yet it was so gentle, so tender, that I didn't feel afraid, didn't feel threatened. I only felt completely seen. Not observed, like a figure under scrutiny, but seen, utterly known, completely understood, without hiding, without shame. He didn't speak at first. He simply stood there, or rather, he was fully present in a way that carried such authority and weight that every part of me felt like it was melting. There were no questions, no judgment, no angry face, only a gaze that pierced deep, not through eyes, but through absolute truth itself. I felt myself become small, almost transparent, as if every layer of disguise I had ever built throughout my life, confidence, logic, knowledge, morality, had completely vanished. I stood there utterly exposed, and yet strangely, I didn't feel ashamed. I didn't feel despised or judged, as I once thought I might if I ever stood before God. Instead, I felt a love that was overwhelming, profound, and deeply serious, as if he was both heartbroken and urgently longing for me to understand something truly important. And then I began to see my life again, not as a fast-forward slideshow of memories, and not as a checklist of accomplishments or failures. It was a raw unveiling of the truth, a place where there was no room for dressing things up, making excuses, or looking away. I saw the different stages of my life unfold clearly, as though light from another realm was shining into parts of my memory I had never thought to revisit. I saw the years I had lived well, in the way the world often praises. Being a hard-working man, polite, helpful when I could be, living kindly, avoiding conflict, and even giving generously to those less fortunate than me. I used to take pride in that, thinking it was enough. I didn't harm anyone, I didn't live recklessly, I didn't lie or act cruelly. I truly believed that was the model of a moral person, and perhaps by society's standards it was. But in that moment, when everything was seen through the eyes of the Holy One, I realized a painful truth. All of those things, no matter how noble or good they seemed, were still empty without His presence. I hadn't lived with God. I hadn't sought Him. I hadn't even once sincerely asked, "Lord, who are you, and are you truly real?" I saw clearly the moments when I had deliberately avoided spiritual questions. Those times I cut someone off as soon as they began mentioning Jesus. The times I brushed off invitations from friends to attend church or join a Bible study group. I saw myself quietly scoffing when someone prayed in public or posted a Bible verse online, and how a subtle sense of condescension would rise in me without my even noticing, because I thought I was just being rational, scientific, clear-minded. But now I understood. That attitude was the symptom of a heart closed off to real life. I didn't feel like I was being judged. I felt like I was being awakened, as if God was saying through His very presence, "I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to see that everything I once believed was enough, wasn't. To see that what I used to call modern faith was actually gentle rejection. And most of all, to see that He still loved me, still waited for me. even though I had ignored him for nearly my entire life. That realization broke me, not because of guilt, but because of a love so vast, so pure, that I had spent a lifetime treating as unnecessary. Right after that moment of encountering Jesus, while my soul was still trembling in awe, overwhelmed, and gripped by a wordless regret, something else happened. A gentle yet commanding light surrounded me, like a soft whisper reminding me that the journey wasn't over yet. I didn't hear a voice, but I knew with absolute clarity he was about to show me what comes next. Not my past, not myself, but what is to come upon this world, and more specifically, upon my homeland. Everything around me changed color, no longer the gray-white stillness of before, but now a sequence of images appearing like a living map, and at the center of it all was America. But not the America I had once driven across with the windows down, not the America I had once felt proud of when I saw the flag waving high, not the America where I used to sip coffee in quiet corner cafes. No, this was a different America, one writhing under violent tremors. Before my eyes appeared familiar cities: New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle, Houston, Atlanta, Dallas, Miami, Philadelphia, Phoenix, one after another, not in triumph but in collapse. I saw the ground split wide open, no warning, no preparation, no time for anyone to react. Highways crumbled like paper, cars plunged into the earth, skyscrapers tilted and then collapsed like sandcastles pulled under by waves. I saw iconic bridges snap in two and fall into rivers below. Neighborhoods descended into chaos, children screaming in the arms of their parents, adults running wildly with no idea where safety could be found. There was no electricity, no cell signal, no police or rescue teams arriving. Only screaming, weeping, and the roaring of the earth itself, as if the planet were groaning in agony. But I didn't believe it was nature going mad. I sensed something far more sacred, like God himself was speaking to the world. I have knocked on your doors so many times, and this is my final knock. Just as I was still reeling from what I had seen, the vision kept moving. This time I saw humanity's reaction, not just the response of those inside churches, but of society as a whole. I saw the wealthy withdrawing their money in a frenzy, clutching suitcases stuffed with gold and dollars, screaming into their phones as they searched for flights out of the country. Though there was nowhere left that was truly safe, I saw politicians holding urgent press conferences, their words firm but their eyes betraying fear, promising to rebuild a bright future, yet not a single one of them mentioned God. Celebrities went live broadcasting vague messages about faith in humanity, but beneath their makeup were faces hollow with panic and emptiness. I saw crowds gathered around massive screens, hanging on every word of a young man standing on a stage, dressed simply but speaking with striking confidence, as if he himself were the answer to every problem. He promised a new order, peace, absolute security, prosperity, and the crowds erupted into applause, crying with relief. But in their eyes, I saw only emptiness, like bodies searching for a soul that would never come. And then I heard that voice, the voice of Jesus. It wasn't loud, it didn't thunder like a storm, but it echoed through every corner of my soul, as if it were etched into me with fire. They cry out to the world to save them, but I am what they need. That sentence tore through the air around me, like a sword, not meant to kill but to sever the thread of deception binding humanity. I couldn't breathe in that moment, not because of a lack of oxygen, but because my heart was breaking. God hadn't just shown me physical destruction, he had shown me spiritual devastation, the internal collapse unfolding across the earth. Humanity, even in the midst of catastrophe, still did not repent, did not pray, did not seek the one who had created them. They ran to money, to science, to technology, to new so-called saviors, but no one ran to God. And as I watched it all, I came to understand the most painful truth, that indifference itself was the greatest earthquake, not the trembling of the earth, but the silent collapse within the human soul. Something no seismograph could measure, yet it was the very thing killing this world day by day. I stood there, unable to do anything but witness it, and it felt as though my soul was being torn apart, because I knew I had once been just like them. I, too, had chased after things that could never save me. And if God hadn't pulled me out of death that day, I would likely still be smiling at the world, completely blind to the truth. I thought the vision would end after what I had just witnessed. America trembling, millions in panic, cities collapsing like sandcastles. But Jesus remained. He didn't leave. His presence alone made it unmistakably clear. This was not just a revelation to be quietly reflected on. This was a mission, a warning handed to me directly. He looked at me with that same gaze, full of love but also solemn, and then he spoke. "You must tell them. There is still time to turn things around, if those who are lost return to me. But time is running out. This is only the beginning, and it will not stop. I am what they need, and I am the only refuge when everything else falls apart." I was no longer just an anonymous traveler in Myanmar. I was a witness, called to speak truth while there was still time. I thought of America, my homeland, and a deep ache pierced my chest. Not because of the buildings that would fall, but because of the souls slowly dying in spiritual blindness, unaware of what they were losing. They weren't intentionally rejecting God. They were just too busy, too distracted, too invested in the things the world praised. And I saw it clearly. Indifference is the first crack. Then comes complacency, then trust in what is false, and finally, complete silence in the face of heaven's call. I used to live that way, and if it hadn't been for the earthquake that day, if it hadn't been for this encounter, I might have died never knowing the truth. But now I have seen, and I cannot stay silent. God did not choose me because I was good. He chose me to prove this. No one is ever too late to be awakened, and no one is ever too sinful to be used as a trumpet of warning for others. Then he stepped closer. I can't describe what happened next in ordinary words. It was as if he placed something into my soul, a message, a responsibility, perhaps an anointing. I don't know what to call it, but it was heavy, holy, and so full of love that it would have made me collapse if I had knees in that moment. I cried in the presence of it, because it wasn't just about me. It was about all those still asleep, still lost, still searching in the dark. Jesus looked at me one last time, his eyes now filled with urgency, not panic, but a deep awareness of time, of how close we are to something the world is not ready for. "Tell them I am real, and my house is still welcoming the children who have not yet awakened." Before I could respond, before I could ask for just one more moment, it happened. I was pulled away, instantly. The beauty, the stillness, the presence, all vanished. Pain returned like fire rushing through nerves that had been numb for too long. My lungs screamed for air. My eyes opened in the midst of chaos. Light, noise, screaming. I was surrounded by rubble, dust, and the frantic shouts of medics. My body was shattered, weak, my head thudding violently, but my soul was alive, more awake than ever before. And I knew why I had come back. Not just to survive, but to warn, to awaken the sleepers, to tell the truth. I woke up beneath the harsh glow of fluorescent lights, surrounded by the soft mechanical humming of hospital machines. Wires were connected to my arm. A steady, dull ache throbbed throughout my body, and a nurse stood nearby whispering something I couldn't fully comprehend. My head pounded, my mouth was parched, and my limbs felt heavy and stiff, barely able to move. But, strangely, none of that held my attention. I wasn't thinking about the pain that pulsed through me, nor was I fixated on the terrifying collapse I had just endured. All I could think about was him, the one I had just stood before, the one who had sent me back, Jesus. I blinked slowly, trying to orient myself in time and space, wondering where I was, what day it was, and whether any of what I had experienced could possibly have been a dream. But deep in my soul, I knew with absolute certainty this had been no dream. No fantasy or hallucination, no figment of imagination could have carried the weight, the clarity, the undeniable truth of what I had just lived through. I had died, I had stood in the presence of the King, I had seen my life laid bare, seen my sins, seen the lies the world had wrapped around me like a warm blanket, and I had seen that even then, His mercy still waited for me, and now, by grace alone, I had returned. The nurses were gentle as they tended to me, and the doctors, though professional, couldn't hide their astonishment that I was still alive. They told me it was nothing short of a miracle that I had survived the collapse, especially considering that others with far less severe injuries had not made it. I nodded in response, but the truth was, I couldn't begin to explain what I had just witnessed. It wasn't that my body prevented me from speaking, but rather that the magnitude of what had been entrusted to me weighed too heavily on my soul to be reduced to small talk or casual words. Something within me had shifted irreversibly. The world around me, though technically unchanged, now felt alien, louder, more chaotic, and yet somehow more hollow than before. I turned to the television mounted on the hospital room wall, where the news anchor reported grim updates about the disaster. Death tolls rising, footage of rubble, sound bites from survivors, politicians and analysts, each trying to assign meaning to the chaos. Some framed it as a natural disaster, some turned it into a political issue, some cried on camera, while others simply scrolled past the tragedy on their phones, numbed and disengaged, as if it had nothing to do with them. And as I watched, my heart broke in a way I had never known before, because I had seen the truth behind all of it. This wasn't just about buildings that had collapsed into dust. It was about hearts, lives, and souls that had already been in ruins long before the ground ever shook. This was not simply a catastrophe, it was a divine alarm bell. A final wake-up call to a world that had been sleeping far too long. I'm telling you all of this not because I enjoy reliving it, but because Jesus gave me a second chance. Not merely to continue breathing, but to speak, to warn, to plead with anyone who still has ears to hear. I used to be like so many others, dismissing things like this as unnecessary, thinking that being a good person was enough, that spiritual things were optional, and that I had plenty of time to figure it all out later. But when death came for me, none of those ideas could save me. No amount of morality, no vague spirituality, no self-improvement, no good intentions could stand between me and eternity. Only He could. He is not calling you to religion. He is not calling you to performance, tradition, or rules. He is calling you to Himself. Return home. Because eternity is not just an abstract concept. It is real. Heaven is real. Hell is real. And your soul is of infinite worth. Daniel's story is not just a near-death experience. It is a wake-up call to a world chasing false stability, forgetting where the true foundation lies. He saw America, not in glory, but in ruin. He saw humanity, not in awakening, but in confusion and spiritual blindness. But Jesus didn't show him these things to spread fear. He showed them to ignite a chance, a final opportunity to turn back to Him. You might be living in a country where the ground hasn't yet shaken, but what about your soul? Is it quietly cracking under the weight of doubt, sin, or indifference? If Daniel, A man once indifferent to faith, who believed being good is enough, could be awakened in the very moment death came near. Then so can you. Don't wait for everything to collapse before seeking the one who can lift you up. Let this story be an invitation, not to religion, but to truth. If your heart feels stirred, if you believe this world needs to be awakened, leave a comment below, because a single honest word can be the first step toward a transformation that lasts forever. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Eternal Bible Stories, so testimonies like this can continue to reach souls still waiting for a miracle. God bless you.